Hare Krishna.
We thought that, there's a lot of material to cover here, and instead of just rushing through, often you've heard me say that the goal is not to get through the book, but to have the book get through to you. So what I thought is, instead of just rushing and going through everything, we'll do one more section, which is Krishna speaking about the mind. And then what we'll do is we'll just open up for questions and answers. Is that okay?
Yeah.
That way, and then rest of them, another time.
Next year.
Next year.
Is that a problem?
I hope so, yeah. Prabhupada is trying to corner me there.
There's not an answer yet.
I hope so. I would be honored. I would be honored. All right, so let's just dive right in. I know some of you have written a lot of questions here, so I'll go through these and then whatever live questions you have as well. Yeah? Okay, so here we can see Krishna has been guiding Arjun through various teachings. Arjun has realized just winning the battle is not success. There has to be something more. Krishna has told him, yes, you have two dharmas, two purposes. One to win the battle, but one to win the inner battle. The battle to overcome illusion and understand your spiritual being. And those two dharmas mean you have to understand your real identity. And so Krishna has taught Arjun that. And then Arjun was a little confused, like, how do I integrate both things? So then Krishna told him, no, you can reposition your lifestyle, you can do your karma, and you can simultaneously be a yogi. You can do karma, yoga. You can learn to connect all of your daily duties in a spiritual aspiration. Now, Krishna, in the next chapter, will teach Arjun about the mind. Remember, every chapter of the Gita is a yoga. So this chapter of the Gita is known as Dhyana Yoga. Dhyana means meditation, or more generally it can mean focus. Now in the world we have Zen Buddhism. The word Zen comes from Dhyan. And focus is required for success in material things and for success in spiritual things. If you can't focus, if you can't put your mind to something, if you can't be attentive, then you won't really achieve anything, not in material spheres and not even in spiritual spheres. So Arjun is looking at Krishna, telling Krishna that I know you want me to stay in the world, but I don't think I'll be able to control my mind in this world, which is full of so many distractions and so many different things. So then, Krishna, what he does in this chapter is he does something called teaching by impossibility. This is a technique all of you can use. If you ever want to convince someone of something, then you can tell them all the arguments why they should do it. And if that doesn't work, then just tell them what the alternative is and how that will never work. And once they realize the impossibility of the alternative, definitely they will take up what you want them to do. One Prabhupada wanted one devotee to become a temple president. And no one wants to be a temple president, trust me. One time they asked Prabhupada, what is the service description of a temple president? Prabhupada said, if something goes wrong, it's your fault. So Prabhupada called for this devotee. So this devotee was coming into the room, he was newly married, he was thinking, Prabhupada's going to give me a big service, he's going to give me a big service. So he was already nervous coming into the room. Prabhupada knew no one wants to take up the responsibility of becoming the temple president. So he came into the room, this devotee was so nervous. Came in with his wife and child. He was kind of shaking. What's Prabhupada going to ask me? And then Prabhupada said, so, I'd like you to take up a service. He was thinking, oh man. Prabhupada said, I want you to take sannyas. Sannyas, this is worse than I thought. He said, I nearly left my subtle body, I was circumambulating the chandelier. And then Prabhupada looked at him and said, okay, if you don't want to take sannyas, at least become temple president. Tell me, I'll do anything, whatever you want us to do. So sometimes this is also another way to teach people. You just show how the alternative is so difficult. So Arjun is saying, Krishna, I don't think I can control my mind here in this world. It's too much distance. So Krishna now is going to say, okay, you want to control your mind in the forest? Let me tell you what that entails. Right? The mind, very, very difficult. Today, live in the room, I want to scan one of your minds. Free MRI. Put your hand up if you would like your mind to be scanned today. Any takers? Prabhu, okay, come, give him a round of applause. Yes, please come up. And for his name? For his name? Parishanubhav. Wow, with a name like that, you're the right person. Okay, Prabhu, I want you to stand here and look at the screen. Okay?
Now I'm nervous.
Now he's nervous. Start chanting. We're going to start scanning your mind now. Take sannyas, yeah. Prabhu, your mind on a continuum, how much is it more in the mode of comparing, criticizing and competing? And how much is it more in the mode of encouraging? Where would you put it along? You have to tell me somewhere along this line. Where are you generally?
With an honest answer.
Honest. Is your wife here? We'll check with her later as well. Where roughly would you say?
I would just say here, maybe.
Where? Yeah, show me more. Maybe you can stand on the stage. Stand on, yeah, just come from here.
Jump up.
Yeah. That's good. We are the Hare Krishnas. Yeah, okay, wow. You're being very generous to yourself, huh? Okay. How much is your mind generally about short-term gratification, and how much are you always meditating on what's my long-term goal? Where are you generally? Okay, it's becoming more humble now. Okay. How much would you say your mind is generally distracted and many-branched, and how much are you attentive and aware, present in the activity?
I'll just say somewhere here.
Okay. Wow. Everyone's like, liar. They're saying, wow, this is like Australian diplomacy. Wow. How much are you controlled by fear? Generally in your mind, are you fearful of things, or are you like inspired? Let's go, dreams. Where are you here? Okay, wow.
No, I don't have a 9 to 5 anymore.
You don't have a 9 to 5 anymore? How much is your mind overthinking and procrastinating? And how much is your mind very focused, analyzes, articulates, moves forward? Where are you along here?
I kind of...
Yeah, but generally.
Let's go here.
Okay, yeah. And how much are you rigid and attached? Like once you have an idea in your mind, if something changes, are you like, okay, let's go with that? Or do you feel a lot of frustration, a lot of, oh, why is it like that? I want it to be like that.
Part of the problem as well. I'll go here.
Okay. Give Shri Bhagavan a round of applause. Wonderful.
That's the part of the problem as well.
That's part of the problem, huh? All right.
Thank you.
This is Prabhuji's mind scan. Oops. Now for a small fee, I can give you my consultation, my diagnosis. Mind could be in order. Mind could be out on the border. Or mind could be out on the border. I think Prabhu deserves a round of applause. He's a bit on the border, but he's doing pretty well. This, I mean, we're just doing this as a kind of. But you can take a picture of this and ask yourself. Imagine you could shift your mindset from here to here. That is the potentiality which is going to increase what you can do in your life. Most people are struggling with a mind which is out of order. And what Krishna explains to Arjun is the nature of the mind, but not just the nature of the mind, how to remold the mind so that it is in order. And once the mind is in order, it won't just help you with material things, it will help you even in your spiritual endeavors. So the mind, we often tell people, magnifies, invents, is very negative, and often distracted. This is the basic nature of the mind. And so Arjun says to Krishna, Chanchalam hi mana Krishna pramati balavadridam. My mind is unsteady, it's strong, it's obstinate, it's stubborn. Krishna, to control it, I think, is more difficult than to control the wind. So Krishna is looking at Arjun saying, you have to control your mind. Not just for material things, for spiritual things. So Arjun, if you don't want to stay in the world, then you can become an Astanga yogi. So this is the process of Astanga yoga. Yam, niyam. First you have to go to the forest, and then there are certain things, lifestyle things you have to do, and there are certain things you have to abstain from. 5 yamas, 5 niyams. And then you start doing postures. Then there's pranayama. And then there's something called pratyahara. This is where you begin to withdraw the senses away. And then there is dharana, focusing of the mind on the super soul within. And then there is control of the mind, dhyan. And then there is samadhi. So Krishna is saying to Arjun, if you don't want to stay in the world, if you want to renounce, if you want to go to the forest, then this is what you have to do. So modern day yoga is this. What people today teach as yoga is 2 steps of Ashtanga. They miss out the 2 steps before, and they don't really have much knowledge of what it's meant to lead to after. And therefore most of yoga in the world has lost its soul. Yoga is a spiritual practice which is meant to connect you to divinity. So Krishna is saying to Arjun, this is what you have to do. You have to go to the forest, then you'll have to be celibate, you'll have to be secluded, you'll have to be still, and you'll have to be silent. Try to do that. Celibate, still, secluded, and silent, and just control your mind. Arjun says to Krishna, it's impractical. I can't do it. I don't think I can do that. Therefore, Krishna is saying, teaching by impossibility. Therefore, that's why I've been telling you for the last 3 chapters, stay here. You don't want to listen to me, you want to go? Go ahead. Take sannyas. Then, can't do it. But then Krishna looks at Arjun and says, it's possible. Ashamshayam mahabaho manodur nigraham chalam abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena chakriyate. You can do it, Arjun, by 2 things. Abhyas, vairagya. Practice, that means spiritual practice, and detachment. These are the 2 secrets if you want to learn how to control your mind. Basically, throughout the day, the mind is moving up and down. Right? As the hours of the day go by, then the mind is moving. Isn't it? Like here, 12 p.m., 1 p.m., sleeping, 1 a.m. 4 a.m. alarm goes off. Then finally you accept, okay, I'm up, start the japa time, 2 rounds, 4 rounds, 6 rounds, 7 rounds, 9 rounds, the mind is getting a bit unsteady. Anyway, now it's Guru Puja, it's okay. Then you're going through nice kirtan, more relaxed. Bhagavatam speaker starts, goes on and on and on and on and on and on. And finally, Sharirar Vidyajat, breakfast time. So now you're more peaceful. And then, service, and then, problem in service. It comes like this, Wife calls! It's like this, So, anyway, you get the point. The mind is going like this, is moving up and down every day. So Krishna, what does he say? Abhyas and Vairagya. So what Krishna says is when the mind is spiking, then Vairagya. Just relax. Don't do anything. Just be peaceful. Watch your mind. The mind is always going up and down. It's always mad. Every time a thought comes in, you don't have to do something with it. And then when there are peaceful times, especially the morning times, that's when you do abhyas. That's when you remold the mind. And gradually what will happen is that as your abhyas is more and more powerful, then what will happen is that the movements of the mind will go more and more less. And then gradually, as your mind becomes more and more steady, like this, then you can do more and more abhyas. And as you do more and more abhyas in the steadiness, then eventually, Krishna says, Dukeshvanudvigna manaha, Sukeshu vigata spriha, Vittara gabaya krodha, stitadhir, muniruchate. Then eventually you become a sage of the steady mind. No attachment, rag, no fear, bhaya, no anger, krodha, dukeshva, even when there is calamity, not displaced, sukeshu, and even when there is something wonderful that happens, relax, take it in perspective, steady. This is the potentiality of how to steady your mind, but it requires practice. It requires one to detach themselves from their mind. Just see, here is a boy playing the computer game. See? He's playing like whatever it is, FIFA or something. Oh no, it's going to go. They're totally into the computer game. And then the parents are watching the child just kind of laughing, thinking, why is he getting overreacting? It's just a computer game. Because they have a broader perspective. But the devotee has an even broader perspective because they know that actually this whole world is a computer game. So this person is seeing through emotionality. They are seeing through rationality. But the devotee is seeing through spirituality. And that's how the devotee becomes the sage of the steady mind. Because as you broaden your perspective, then what happens is you're removing yourself from limited perspectives and you're seeing everything in a broader way. And therefore you don't get as affected by things. You learn to control the mind because the mind is just the waves of this temporary world. So like this, Krishna is teaching Arjun that you have to control your mind. Material, spiritual. If you become an Ashtanga yogi, you have to control your mind. If you become a karma yogi, you have to control your mind. Where is going to be the best place to do it? If you want to eject yourself and do it, it's going to be very difficult. Rather, better you stay here and just follow the principles of abhyas and vairagya. So like this, Krishna teaches Arjun about the mind. The mind is not the root of consciousness. The mind is the route or route, if you are American. It's the means through which consciousness comes. Create a life that looks good on the outside, is it? More important is to create a life that feels good on the inside. Everyone can do whatever they want to do in life and achieve so many things, but if you don't control your mind, it will be very difficult to navigate this journey of life. Most people are identifying with the mind. Krishna tells us, rethink that. Instead, identify the mind. Don't identify with the mind. Identify the mind. Step back. Remember that computer game. Step back. Don't get into the emotional chaos. You can feel your thoughts, observe your thoughts, but not identify with your thoughts. And can we ever stop the mind from straying away? No, Krishna says, yato nischalati manaschan chalamastiram. The mind will stray, but make sure the mind doesn't stay away. Stop the mind from staying away. So your mind will wander. But what does Krishna say? Keep bringing it back. Keep bringing it back. The art of focusing is to keep refocusing. Therefore, sometimes people say, I can't do meditation. My mind is too disturbed. My mind is too disturbed to do 10 minutes of meditation. Then I tell them, you need to do 20. Because the idea is that it's an abhyas, it's a practice by which the mind comes back. So can you begin to see how Krishna is teaching Arjun so many wonderful practical things that can help him in his life? It's very, very systematic. It's very, very logical. The Gita is not a random conversation. Krishna is step by step giving Arjun every bit of wisdom he requires to live in this world, but maximize his success on all levels. And so later on, Krishna will speak so many things. In the next 3 chapters, Krishna will speak all about love. Because the goal of life is not just to control the mind. The goal of life is for the mind to become absorbed in something very, very beautiful. And so in the next 3 chapters, Krishna will talk about love, because love is the essence of life. 9 is the middle, right in the middle of the Gita, and that chapter is Raja Vidya, the most confidential knowledge. And there Krishna will reveal the glory of bhakti. And then in the next 3 chapters, Krishna will talk about divinity and how you can actually experience Krishna in your life. In chapter 10, Krishna will explain, indirectly you can see him through all the beauty of this world. In chapter 11, Krishna will tell how you see Krishna as the source of the universe, the universal form. And in chapter 12, Krishna will explain, if you develop certain qualities in your character, then Krishna is endeared, and he'll intimately begin engaging with you in your life. And then from 13 to 17, Krishna will explain all about energy, how to live in this world which is temporary, but how to live in this world without being affected by the world. Lifestyle, habits, how to embrace sattva. And then in the final chapter, Krishna will summarize everything and teach Arjun how to re-enter the world and how to re-enter, but with a different type of consciousness that will help him to be successful as a warrior, but successful also as a spiritualist. So this is the whole flow of the Gita. It's very, very powerful, very, very logical. And today we only got through half of the sections. Next time we'll do more. But I hope this gave you some food for thought, some things to think about. And I guess now we can do some questions and answers. Okay. So I see a few hands there. So why don't we begin with these hands while I...
Thank you, Maharaj. It was very, very refreshing to know your Bhagavad Gita. As Prabhu said, we might think that we know it all, but it was very, very refreshing. My only request, before any questions, I was hoping, if it's easier, in the next 10-15 minutes, you can actually cover till chapter 9, which is the start of the Bhakti Yoga. So, if it's possible. So.
Oh, you want me to do that section?
Yes. So
for the next one?
Yes, the Bhakti Yoga is...
Alright, should I do that?
Yes.
Okay.
There'll be no questions.
Alrighty. Put your hands up if you're looking for love. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, we're all looking for love. So, in chapter number 6, Krishna was talking about how to stabilize your mind. Now Krishna will explain that the goal of life is not just to stabilize your mind, but actually the goal of life is to stimulate your mind so that it actually becomes enchanted by something very, very beautiful. So now Krishna will explain the core of the Bhagavad Gita, which is how to actually find love. Love, Krishna is going to explain, is the essence. See here, Raja. Raja means the king. So the goal of everything in the Bhagavad Gita is ultimately to develop love. So, sometimes it's explained that the Bhagavad Gita is like a jewel box. This is explained by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. He says the base is like karma yoga. The final 6 chapters is like jnana yoga. And the middle is the jewel, and that's bhakti yoga. It's basically the science of how to live, love, and let go. If you learn how to live, love, and let go, life will be very, very beautiful. So, Bhaktivedanta Thakur, the ancient teacher, explains that religion, people practice generally for 4 different motivations. The lowest is when we practice out of fear. Higher than that is when we practice out of desire. And higher than that is when we practice out of duty. But higher than that is when we practice out of love. This is not just religion. You can think of any relationship you have in this world. If you relate to someone because of their power, that's a very low type of relationship. If you relate to someone because of their position and what they can give you, that's a little bit higher, but it's still very transactional. If you relate to someone because of their productivity, what they've done for you or what they can, how they've helped you, that's much higher, but still not the best. But when you love someone because of personability, because of purity, because of who they are, because you just like them, that's the deepest type of relationship. So just like we have all these types of relationships in this world, you can also have these different types of relationship with divinity. And Krishna explains that when you connect with divinity out of love, then you actually experience what the soul is yearning to experience. When we direct our love to Krishna and develop that love, then it's like watering the roots of the tree and the whole tree becomes energized. This is an ancient verse from the Bhāgavatam. Yathataror moola nisechanena tripyanti tatskanda bhajo pashaka pranopahara chayatendriyanam tatheva sarvar hanamachuteja. When you water the root of a tree, then the entire tree becomes energized. When you feed the stomach, then the entire body becomes energized. And when you worship Krishna and direct your love to Krishna, then you will love everyone and everything around you. It's like when you shine a laser beam into a diamond, then that light will go in all the directions. So when you direct your love towards Krishna, the root, then you will love your family. Not just that, you'll love your colleagues. Not just that, you'll even love strangers. Not even that, you'll even love the animals. And not even that, you'll even love the earth. You can't love Krishna and then trash the earth. Because what will happen is you'll see divinity everywhere. And therefore, you'll actually find that you have substantial relationships and connections with everyone and everything in this world. And therefore, the whole idea of these chapters, I'm just going quick because of time. But if you see here, these chapters, this one's called Knowledge of the Absolute, This one's called attaining the supreme, and this is the most confidential knowledge. Now, if you look in these chapters, what Krishna is basically doing is explaining how you develop a relationship of love with him. The principles that Krishna gives can even be used for relationships of this world. So, for example, if the soul wants to love God, or if a soul wants to learn how to love other souls, these principles will still stand. They're universal. And in these chapters, Krishna gives the principles of how to develop love. People think love is random. Most people are waiting. Maybe I'll wake up today and I'll find love. Expecting love to happen to them. Krishna says love is not random. Love is intentional. In other words, there are certain activities, there are certain behaviors, there are certain practices, there are certain mindsets, there are certain attitudes that if you develop them into your character, you will be able to actually develop loving relationships with others. And Krishna explains what those activities are. Some people think love is a feeling, but Krishna explains love is action. Love is experienced in action. Love is expressed in action. And so Krishna explains there are different activities, actions, reciprocations that we can embody within our character that allow us to more deeply connect with someone. People in the world think love is about chemistry. Krishna says love is about commitment. Chemistry may bring two people together, but it doesn't generate love. What generates love is commitment. Sometimes people say, I'll love someone and then I'll serve them. But we tell people, by serving people, you learn how to love them. And therefore, Krishna is explaining all of this. Love requires interaction. Yes, that's true. But more important than that, love requires attention. It's not necessarily in a loving relationship how much you're together, but it's how much you are present when you are together. That may define the amount of love in that relationship more. And people think love is binary. Either I have it for someone or I don't. But what Krishna explains is that love unfolds like a flower. And so you do have love. But that love may be at different developmental stages. So the science of bhakti, the other day we were at a program and I was mentioning the 5 most powerful processes of bhakti. To chant Krishna's names, to read the Bhāgavatam, to worship the deity, to serve the devotees, and to live in the holy place. By doing those 5 activities, for example, 5 powerful bhakti practices, but doing them with this mindset, doing them in an intentional way, a committed way, an attentive, and what will happen is that one actually begins to have a very, very real, loving relationship with Krishna. And the Gita is so powerful that these principles don't just count for your relationship with Krishna, but they count for any relationship of this world. So if you feel like you're connected to someone, but there's not that much love in the relationship, you might want to consider some of these principles which actually help us to understand how to invest our heart in someone else. And that's the science of bhakti. So many more things can be said. I'm just giving you a glimpse. But in these chapters, Krishna then goes on to explain this point, that love is the real goal of our life, and love is a science. Rupa Goswami wrote a book, the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and the subheading that Srila Prabhupada gave was the complete science of devotional service. So love is not this kind of random, airy-fairy, whimsical thing. It's actually a very, very scientific thing by which you open yourself up to actually connecting. And that science and that is given by Krishna. So some thoughts on Bhakti Yoga. Alright, so shall we continue? I saw some other hands here. Was it? Yes. Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. My question is, how do we know what things we can control and what things we can't? You discussed about setting goals based on what things we can control. Eventually, Krishna is the one who controls most things, the things even we think we can control.
So how do we know what we control and what we don't?
Yes.
Okay. For example, let's take an example. Say for example, okay, let's take the example of studying for your exams. Okay? A student is trying to succeed in their exams. Right? They want to do the best they can. Now just ask yourself, what's in your control? So what can a student make goals about that's in their control that will help them to succeed? Give me some ideas. Hours of study.
Study plan.
Planning. What else? Attitude. Guidance. Teachers. What else?
Resources.
Discipline? Discipline. Resources.
Sleeping well before the exam.
Lifestyle.
Friendship. Time management.
Friends. See, so it's very clear. Make goals around all of this. My goal is not to get 9 A's. That's not my goal. My goal is I'm going to study for this many hours. I'm going to do this much planning. I'm going to make sure I have the best teachers around me who can help. I'm going to make sure I live the right lifestyle. Then what happens is once you've done all of those things and you've ticked it, you can go to bed and relax at night, wake up the next morning, take the exam, and no matter what the result comes, you can rest assured you did your best and whatever's happening is happening by Krishna's will. But if you put all the emphasis here, then what generally happens is you end up neglecting these things because you're meditating on this too much, which already brings your productivity down. And the other problem is that if you don't get this, you think I'm a failure. But maybe you're not a failure. Do you get what I'm saying? So this is like, it's interesting that when Western scholars looked at the Bhagavad Gita, you know the main teaching that they took away? It wasn't bhakti. The main thing they were amazed by was this concept of karma yoga. Western scholars were amazed by this idea that you work in a detached way. This was like a paradigm shift for them. But what you will see nowadays, like kids are under so much stress. It's so unnatural because what we're doing is we're putting all the emphasis here instead of telling them, focus on what you can do. You understand? So any activity you're doing, it will be very clear what's in your control and what's beyond your control.
But sometimes these things we think in our control. These things that we think are in our control, they can get out of control. We plan a time, but something else comes and it can just go out of control.
So that's there. But again, if say for example, I say my goal is 10 hours of study a day, and I'm doing it, and some unexpected factor comes which means I can't do it, I can still go to bed at night saying, I planned it, I did it. I couldn't do anything that I broke down in a car and something happened. I couldn't. So you still know. The main thing is you should go to bed at night knowing I did everything I could do. Everything else is out of my hands. If you do this, you will be saved from so much stress. and you will also produce your best result. Yes?
I just have a question about detachment. So you say we have a physical body and a physical life, and we love people, and I just want to understand, what's the extent of detachment? So if we kind of sit there and go, they are a body, so therefore I'm not going to be attached and mourn for their loss. So if I lose someone, I'm losing their physical body. But at what extent do I go, I'm detached? But if I get too detached, then there's technically no love for that person.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's a great point. So Krishna is teaching Arjun on the battlefield. And what is Krishna? The very first thing he says to Arjun in 2:11. Asocyan anvasochastvam pravyavadanscha bhashashe gatasun agatasuncha nam sochanti pandita. Krishna looks at Arjun and he says, you're an eternal soul. All of these, they're eternal souls. The wise lament neither for the living nor for the dead. That's what Krishna tells Arjun. 10 days into the battle, Arjun's son Abhimanyu is on the battlefield. And he gets cornered by the Kaurava army in the Chakra Vyuha. He knows how to penetrate the phalanx and dynamically fight, but what he doesn't know is how to get out of the phalanx. So he goes in, fights, but then eventually gets slayed within that. So Abhimanyu is on the battlefield and he's dead. Arjun hears on the other side of the battlefield, my son's died. Arjun is shocked, goes to that, Krishna drives him to that place. They're looking at Abhimanyu's body and Arjun is crying. Now Krishna is behind Arjun. Krishna doesn't tap him on the shoulder and say, hang on, I told you, the wise lament neither for the living nor for the dead. Krishna says, grieve. That we are not the body, that we are not the mind, doesn't mean we can't have relationships of affection, especially with those who we've gone through a life journey with. But what it does mean is that we have a broader perspective. So that yes, Arjun did lament. It's natural, that's his own son. So Arjun cried, he lamented, he grieved. But then what did Arjun do the very next moment? He picked up his Gandiva bow and he started fighting. And he continued on in life. The difference between affection and attachment is that in affection, you have feelings for someone, it's very real, you have love, you have compassion, but you never lose sight of the bigger reality. When you become attached to someone, you become so much emotionally involved in them that you lose touch with the bigger picture and you become stagnated in your life. Therefore, sometimes in some people's lives, someone may pass away and then it becomes a block to them moving forward. That shouldn't happen. It's natural to have love, it's natural to have affection, but Krishna says to Arjun, the soul moves on, and therefore you have to also move on. So bhakti doesn't make someone cold-hearted, but it also allows someone to be affectionate in an appropriate way. Does that make sense? Yeah, you want to respond? Sure.
How do we know that the soul does move on to another way, and do we lose connection to that other soul that was lost?
So you're saying what proof is there that the soul moves on?
I guess so, yes. But also, do we lose connection to that other soul forever if they are moving on?
Okay. Alright, so what proof is there that the soul moves beyond this body? So the first thing is that scientists themselves say, as we have Newton's laws, energy, Newton, right? And energy cannot be created or destroyed but simply transferred. So even energy, the laws of physics tell us that energy is never destroyed. So that potential energy of the spirit, even according to science, has to go somewhere. There are other scientific studies and investigations and things that have been done to point to the fact that consciousness goes beyond this body. For example, a famous neuroscientist, Francis Crick, done so much research into near-death experiences. He was a cardiologist. So like, for example, someone who is in an operating theatre having a cardiac arrest, declared clinically dead, but then they do a resuscitation. And when the person comes back to life, what they begin to do is describe everything that was going on in the theatre room at a time when they were declared clinically dead. In other words, they had an out-of-body experience. So how can you have an out-of-body experience if consciousness is just in the body? That means consciousness must be something separate from the body. Another thing, there's someone called Ian Stevenson. He documented 5,000 cases of children having past life memories. So a young child, not under any hypnosis, begins talking about being someone in their previous life, sometimes someone across the other side of the world. Stevenson notes down all the details, goes back in history, was such a person ever alive? In many cases, 5,000 cases, positive corroboration. Sometimes he's even taken children halfway across the world to a place they've never been to in this life, and they begin to describe the whole environment. In India, one person had a past life memory and recalled the person who killed them in their previous life. This only happens in India. So this person, now this was an unresolved case. So the person turns up to the police station, I know who killed me. And they're looking at him like, but you're here in front of us. No, I know who killed me in the previous life. So he names the person, they go, they do all the research, that this all fits together. Times of India ran an article, for the first time in history, someone is a witness in their own murder trial. So there are so many things which point to the fact, that consciousness must go beyond this body. Something else called xenoglosy. I don't know if you've heard of this. Children at the age of 4 or 5 can begin speaking languages that they never learned in this life. Mozart was able to compose symphonies at the age of 5. How is it possible? Clearly there is some knowledge transference from a previous existence. So there is plenty of scientific, empirical research to help us think that maybe there's more than this body. And do we connect with souls beyond this body? Possible. Of course, we won't connect to them in these identities because these are just temporary identities. But as souls, yes, we may have relationships and we may reconnect with people. Is that okay? All right. Anyone? Yes.
Hare Krishna Swami. Sorry to go back on to that topic.
This one?
Just wanted to understand what's in our control, we plan accordingly. But to plan that, we need to have a set target in front of us. And that target will be in terms of result what we want to achieve after doing that activity. So how to plan it without having that set target in front of us and without having a settled attachment to it?
Yeah, no, definitely. We have to have a why, we have to have a purpose, we have to have a plan, like you said, a goal. If you don't know where you're trying to go, then any path will take you there. Right? So you need to have a goal. So there's no problem with having a goal. But even the goal, I would say, we have to again look at. People make this a goal. I would say, is that really your goal? Why do you want 9 days? Because I want this job. Why do you want that job? Because then I think it will give me this facility. And why do you want that facility? Because I want to experience a life of exploration and discovery. Okay, that's what you really want. So then we should put up on our wall, mission in life, to have a life of experience and discovery. Not to get 9 A's. Because that's not really your goal. It's not even your innate goal. Therefore, one of the most beautiful things about Krishna consciousness is it helps you get to your deepest why. We have to get to our deepest why. That's Dharma. So, and Krishna is so expert, what he's giving you is Svadharma and Sanatan Dharma. And when you have both of those purposes aligned into your vision of life, then you get to your deepest why. So I think there's a way of having a vision, a goal, a why, and then breaking it down into a plan, and then setting goals that are in your control. And in that way, you become most effective. Is that okay? All right. Shall I read some of these?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Okay.
Say some words about the patriotism, how we can relate these devotees, because most of the devotees in Krishna consciousness, they are highly intellect and highly technical people. So how we can serve a country when we are in emergencies or in our difficulties?
Thank you so much. At the beginning of today's talk, I was mentioning how Srila Prabhupada's brilliance was that he built a house in which the whole world can live. Srila Prabhupada said, I want to create the United Nations of the spiritual world. ISKCON should be the United Nations of the spiritual world. Once Srila Prabhupada was driving past the United Nations building, and he said, this is the United Nations, but every single time I come, there's more and more flags. Are they actually becoming united? What we're trying to do in Krishna consciousness is go beyond sectarianism. Every country, every nation, every culture has something beautiful to bring to the world. And therefore we honor, respect, and value and appreciate everyone. And what we try to do is wherever we go, in whatever culture and whatever country, we try to encourage people that whatever talents and abilities and special aptitudes they have, they should use that in a higher cause in a beautiful way. So in Krishna consciousness, we're not for any one country. We're not for any one sect. We're not for any one group. We say Vasudeva Kutumbakam. The whole world is Krishna's family. And so for us, there's no question of patriotism, nationalism or anything like that. It's too small. That vision's too small. Our vision is one world, one spiritual world. Unite everyone under the teachings, the universal spiritual teachings of the Gita. And India definitely has something valuable to give to the world because India is the home of spirituality. And therefore, India is a very holy place, and we go to India and we take advantage, and we should make a special effort to protect the values of India. But when all is said and done, we're not for one country. We have to go beyond this, and we have to actually unite the world on spiritual principles. This is the greatest need.
I just want to bring it back to the MRI scan.
Okay, yeah, sure.
And some of the key points that you've been mentioning include stimulation of the brain, focus, being attentive, analysis. And I just wanted to ask if you could elaborate on how to still have those principles while being detached and what that means.
So let me just try and understand what you're saying. So I'll just bring this back just so you can see it. Sorry. Oh God. So many slides. So can you explain to me what you mean? So like these principles are here.
Yeah. How do we differentiate, or how can we be attentive and focused, keep our brain stimulated while also being flexible and detached? Can you just elaborate on
Yeah.
the dichotomy?
Thank you. Yeah. So some of these sometimes seem to be, are they in conflict? So on one hand I'm saying you should be attentive and focused, and then on another hand I'm saying you should be flexible and detached. Sometimes there are factors beyond our control, as we were mentioning. Right? We can draw two columns, everything in your control and then everything outside of your control. The idea is when it comes to all the things in your control, then you should be attentive and focused. And the idea is that when things happen which are out of your control, you should be flexible and detached. Simple as that. Okay? Like say for example, in psychology they say there's the circle of influence. And then there's the circle of concern. The circle of influence is everything within your control. And the circle of concern is that everything that affects you but not in your control. And the gap between these two is frustration. Now, whichever circle you focus on expands. So if you're constantly worrying, oh, the news, America, Donald Trump, Israel, Gaza, just totally out of your control, constantly meditating, what will happen is that circle will increase. And then your frustration also increases. But if you focus on your influence, if you're attentive and focused, then that will increase. And then the frustration becomes less because you find you're able to actually expand your influence by doing what you can. So be attentive and focused about what you can control, and then be rigid and flexible when there are factors out of your control that then transpire things in a different way, and realize there must be some higher plan behind that. Does that help?
Thank you for this wonderful lecture. I found it very intriguing. I've also been able to focus throughout most of the lecture compared to other ones. So my question is, why are so many things out of order in this world, and how do we kind of get them in order?
In the world today there are political problems. In the world today there are economic problems. Very, very volatile economy. Less than 1% of people own 99% of the wealth. That should scare you. There's social problems. There's individual problems, mental health, and so on and so forth. But it's interesting, when you trace back every single problem to its root, it's all basically due to a lack of spiritual principles. Why do we have environmental problems? Because people don't see divinity in nature. The first step to exploiting something is to depersonalize it. And then you'll exploit it. Why are there economic problems? Gandhi said there's enough for every man's need, but not for every man's greed. Why do we have economic problems? Why do we have exploitation? Because people are greedy. We tell people the wealthiest person is not the one who has the most, it's the one who needs the least. But people are so poor that all they're looking for is money. Why do we have political problems? Because people still identify with their body. I'm Indian, I'm Muslim, I'm Pakistani, I'm Israeli, I'm Jew, and you're taking over my land and I'm going to attack. Why do we have mental problems? Problems with mental health? Again, lack of spirituality, lack of balance. So therefore, sometimes people come to us and say like, why don't you guys do something practical? You guys are just like singing around in the street, you know, just like having a good time, like praying all day in your temples and just eating lots of food. Like, why don't you guys do something practical for the world? But it's like I said, you can't solve the problems of the world with the same type of thinking that created them in the first place. And therefore, what the world needs is a shift in paradigm, a shift in thinking, a shift in principles, a shift in character. What the world really needs is more spiritual people. That's what's going to solve the problem. Every other solution is just stopgap. It doesn't get to the root of the problem. In IIT, Indian Institute of Technology, they found that the students were getting so stressed that they were committing suicide, and many of them were hanging themselves from the fans in the room. The fans. So you know what IIT did, right? They took out all the fans from the room. Well, great. But maybe there's a deeper problem here that we need to think about. So all the world is doing is just looking for superficial solutions without getting to the root of what is required. So, like so therefore we are doing something practical for the world. Does that make sense?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thanks for the talk. I had a question related to the mind scan earlier. So sometimes depending on what situation or environment you're in, for example, like a school or a home or whatever, like sometimes it feels like it's in order, or sometimes it feels like it's out of order. So in what ways, or in what practical ways can you make sure your mind is always in order or control?
Yes, so how do we make sure the mind is in order, in control? Life is volatile. I was mentioning 9 to 5. That's a volatile time. You don't know what's going to happen when you walk out the door every single day. But between 5 and 9, you have the ability to create sacred space. That's the part that you're more in control of. And so, I could say many, many things. What you do between 5 and 9, have proper rest, exercise, have good relationships. But one thing I'll focus on today is having a morning routine. Right? You can even start, if no one here is already doing a morning routine, you can start like this. 1 hour. Okay? 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. 15 minutes, move. Do some yoga, do some pranayama, move your body. Get the blood circulation going. 15 minutes, meditate. Do some chanting. 15 minutes, read. Read Bhagavad Gita, read some higher wisdom. And 15 minutes, reflect. Write a journal. Try to understand your inner world. What are your aspirations? What are your intentions for the day? As time goes by, it will evolve, and naturally we do more meditation. Chanting becomes our main focus. But don't forget these things. These things are also super important. They add a unique ingredient to remolding the state of your mind. So therefore, we have to spend this time. I wish I had my computer. I don't have it here today, but sometimes I show people a chart of the daily routines of the most creatively impactful people in the world. Artists, activists, politicians, so many people and their daily routine. And the one thing you'll find amongst all of them, two things you find amongst all the most impactful people in the world, is that they read books and they woke up early. Just doing those two things. Harvard study says if you read for 8 minutes a day, your stress goes down by 45%. It's Harvard, must be true. So, don't underestimate the power of this. It's very powerful. But you've got to do it every day. It's the everyday principle. That water that's dripping on the stone for years then creates a huge dent. So you have to spend time working with the mind. All right? Yes?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. We take birth to suffer all the karmas. Now, in the material life, what is the best way we can minimize our karma? Like, where is the end of this life and death cycle? Being in material life, what is the ways we can best achieve to come out of this cycle?
Thank you so much. We're here to understand who we are. We're here in this world to realize that we are eternal souls and we have a relationship with Krishna. Every karmic reaction that we go through is helping us to awaken this realization. So when does karma stop? Karma stops once you've learned the lessons. Therefore Krishna says, Aham tam sarva papebhyo mokshayishami ma sucha. Krishna says, I remove all karma. There's no need for any more karma if you've learned the lessons. So, some people learn by hearing. Other people don't learn by hearing, they learn by seeing. And if you don't learn by hearing and seeing, then you have to experience. So when Krishna rounds up the cows, at the end of the day, first he plays his flute. Some of them come, many of them don't. So then Krishna blows his horn. Some more come, but many of them don't. And then Krishna goes out with a stick and chases the rest of them back. So, pain is teaching us something. When you go through pain, don't just meditate on what am I feeling here. Ask yourself, what am I supposed to be learning here? Then what happens is the pain transforms into progress. So therefore, why does Krishna send karmic pain? So that we can progress towards Vaikuntha where there is no pain. Krishna wants you to be comfortable. I said that the other day. Krishna wants you to be comfortable, but he wants you to be comfortable in spiritual consciousness. There's no comfortable situation in this world. Don't try. Waste of time. You can do all the arrangements under the sun and it's never going to work. Therefore, adjust your expectation, embrace your situation, and aspire for connection. Alright?
Sometimes we try to build loving connection with Krishna and try more and more to serve him. But because of that, sometimes people that are near to us, they get disappointed and think we are over-involved and not respecting them. If loving Krishna means moving up the love ladder and loving everything and everyone, then why sometimes in our attempt to love Krishna, we end up disappointing others?
Alright, so as you become more and more involved in Krishna consciousness, you're trying to offer your love to Krishna, but then there will be others around you who become disappointed. So why do they become disappointed? That's your question? Or why does that happen? Is that your question? So everyone is a soul. Everyone has free will, and everyone has a particular way of looking at life. So that means in your life, it doesn't matter what you do. If you become Krishna conscious, if you become a complete materialist, if you try to do both, half and half, there will be someone who won't be happy. Isn't it? Have you ever done something in your life which has made every single person happy? Because everyone has free will, so everyone has a different opinion. So the first thing is to understand that there will be nothing that you do in life which will please everyone. Point number one. Point number two is that sometimes we have to also take responsibility and say, although I'm trying to love Krishna, am I acting towards my relatives in a hurtful way? Sometimes under the name of becoming more Krishna conscious, we can become very, very insensitive towards people around us. Isn't it? We become very judgmental. We become holier than thou. We start to tell them everything's Maya. And which mother and father are you? I've got so many mothers and fathers. Okay, like, wow, like relax, it's like. So point number two is ask yourself, am I doing anything in the way I'm conducting myself which may be adding fuel to the fire? Point number two. Point number three is realize that sometimes we have to also accept that certain people may be disappointed, though in the long term they will appreciate. And therefore don't judge them. Don't shut the door on them, but just give them time to digest it. With time, everyone will realize there's nothing better you can do with your life than take up Krishna consciousness. It just makes sense on every level to do it. You're never going to lose out. But it takes some time for people to adjust to that. And so that's what I would say. That's how we understand. So we should not have some utopian idea, and I'll become a devotee and everyone will cheer me on. And yeah, I'll give you another one. The fourth one is that sometimes the people who oppose you in Krishna consciousness are the ones who are actually giving you the strength to do it for a lifetime. Sometimes people, when I became a monk, naturally you can imagine what that's like for your mother and father. So there's a lot of opposition. And now I look back, I realize that all of the opposition they gave me was good for me. Because it made me ask myself, do I really want to do this? Why am I doing this? And they helped me to deepen my why through their opposition. So now I go back to my mom and I say, it's your fault. So sometimes the people who oppose you are the ones who help you to clarify it and give you conviction in your own mind. Because unless someone challenges you, you may not do that work. Understand? So like that. See? Alright. I think we have to end here. I see so many hands, but time is going on. And the Gita is unlimited. And looks like your questions are also unlimited. So, today we spent a little bit of time looking at the Gita. You can see how practical it is. You can see how much wisdom there is. So take it. Srila Prabhupada gifted it to us. And all it now requires is a little bit of time, energy, attention, and learning in the association of devotees. And it can help us in all ways. So thank you so much for your attention, your participation. Srila Prabhupada ki Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna.